Hey study buddies, so today we're going to look at price elasticity of demand. So what is it? It shows how responsive consumers are to price changes. So let's say we're trying to find what is the price elasticity of demand from this point over here, P1Q1 to P2Q2. Well, essentially what you're trying to determine is you're trying to see what's the percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in price. And what that shows you is it shows you, well, how is our quantity demanded going to change when we have a price change? Okay, so I'm going to write out the formula right here. Okay, so this is your formula. It would be Q2 minus Q1 over Q average. So Q1 plus Q2 divided by 2. And then you put that all divided by P2 minus P1 over your P average, so P1 plus P2 divided by 2. And that's how you get your demand elasticity. So we're going to work through some problems, and then we're going to go more into detail about demand elasticity so you can get a better understanding. So let's take a look at this first problem over here. So you are given market data that shows when the price of pizza is $4. The quantity demanded is 60. So we have our P1, we can write it out, is $4, right? And our Q1 is 60, right? Because at $4, we have a quantity demanded of 60. All right, let's continue reading. And when the price of pizza is $2, so P2 is 2, the quantity demanded is 120. So quantity demanded here, 120. What is the price elasticity of demand? So essentially all we need to do is plug it into our formula. So let's plug it in. All right, so I plugged in everything into our formula. As you can see, we have Q2, 120 minus 60 divided by the average of the two. So how did I get that 90? I did 120 plus 60 divided by 2. And I put this all over our 2, P2 minus 4, and then divided by the average of 2 and 4, which is 2 plus 4 divided by 2, right? And so what you want to do now is you just want to calculate that. So plug it into your calculator and figure out what you get. So try it out for me. So you get -1. So you'll always get a negative number because the demand curve is inversely related. But what you have to understand is that we don't have to consider it as a negative number, okay? It's just going to be considered as 1. And so this here is your price elasticity of demand for this given question. Now, what does this value tell us, right? Well, we have various different ways of categorizing this. So I'm going to show you 3 ways. So first we have elastic demand. This is when your elasticity of demand is greater than 1. So that means that, of course, your percentage change in quantity demanded is greater than your percentage change in price. Because if you think about it, you have your formula, it's percent change in quantity demanded over percent change in price. The only way for it to be greater than 1 is if that percent change in quantity demanded is much larger than that of the price. And so how will your demand curve look? It will look less steep. And why is that? That's because with a price change, so with any small price change, there's going to be, like, let's say we're going from here to here, there's going to be a bigger change in quantity demanded, as you can see. Like, this is the whole change in quantity demanded, whereas your price change is just looking like this, right? Okay, now let's take a look at inelastic demand. Inelastic demand is when it is between 0 and 1. And this means that the percent change in quantity demanded is less than the percent change in price. So that makes sense, right? Because your percent change in quantity demanded has to be much smaller than that of the price in order to get a decimal value. So what does that show in our graph? It shows a very steep graph. Why? Because let's say we're moving from this price to this price. As you can see, even though the percent change is really large, there's only a small change in quantity demanded, right? So there is a big change in price, but small change in quantity demanded. And then we have unit elastic demand, which is just when your elasticity of demand is equal to 1. So your percent change in quantity demanded is equal to the percent change in price. Awesome. Now that you got a little understanding of that, we're going to see how does being elastic, inelastic, or unit affect your total revenue. So let's say that we had elastic demand. So right here. And we increased our price. What would happen? So let me write here. Let's say we increase our price. How would that impact our revenues? Well, of course, that would make our revenues decrease, right? Because now a lot of our quantity demanded is going away. So even though we make this price higher, less people are willing to purchase whatever it is we're selling. And then if you decrease the price though, there's an increase in revenues because there is a lot more quantity demanded, right? Because you know that percent change in quantity demanded changes a lot as you change the price. Now, when you look at inelastic demand, let's say you increase the price change. Increasing the price change of something that's inelastic will cause more revenue. Why? Because you're not losing a lot of quantity demanded. Even though you make those prices higher, doesn't matter. And I could use a good example, like, for example, a cigarette seller. Well, of course, even if they make their prices higher, there's a lot of people that are addicted to cigarettes, so they're willing to pay whatever to purchase it. That's why that quantity demanded still remains, and so their revenues increase. Whereas if you decrease, it's going to decrease the price, you decrease the change in revenue as well. And then unit, it has no effect. No matter what you do, the revenue is always going to be the same. So a good way of remembering this is that elastic changes in opposite directions. So I'll actually write that out. It changes in opposite directions. And inelastic changes in the same direction. Awesome. Finally, we're going to take a look at determinants of price elasticity of demand. So what can affect the elasticity of something? What can make something more elastic and make something less elastic? Well, what about portion of consumer income? If we're looking at something that only takes a small portion of income, like for example, a gum pack, well, you increasing that price isn't going to make a big difference. So it's still going to be inelastic. The second one is access to substitutes. If there's a lot of access to substitutes, it's going to make it more elastic because there's many more options available that people can choose from. So if you decide to change your prices, well, they can move over to something else. Thirdly, we have our necessities versus luxuries. Obviously, your necessities are going to be more inelastic because people need these to survive. Whereas your luxuries, it's not necessary. So if there's a big price change and someone can't afford it anymore, well, they're not going to be demanding that. And finally, time. With the passage of time, preferences change, substitutes may become more available, and so your price elasticity of demand is more elastic over time. Thank you guys for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed and see you next time.